Hello, my name is Cameron Craddock, and I've been asked to provide a brief introduction to Brainhacks for the 2017 Online Brain Intensive. Before I begin, I would like to thank Sarah Kimmich for hosting and organizing this outstanding event and for asking me to participate. I have a few slides that I've prepared for this that I'll try to share with you. These slides um, are some that I customized from some that friends Liam shared with me, and I'd like to thank him for his contribution. So the Brain Hack is a course, is a type of neuroscience workshop that was created by me and a few of my colleagues a few years ago. So specifically, those colleagues include people like Nolan Nichols, Pierre Balek, and Daniel Margulies. And Daniel organized the first Brain Hack in Leipzig in 2012. And so where the brain hack idea came from was some of the conferences that I and my colleagues, Daniel and Pierre, participated in when we were younger, when we were postdocs and graduate students. And in general, these conferences had kind of a very one-dimensional quality where you would go and you would sit down and you would listen to somebody lecture, and and then in between, we would have these very exciting events or interactions with our colleagues, and we would talk to one another, meet other people in the field, and then we would have to go back into these lectures and kind of sit down and not be able to interact with one another again. And we began talking about the idea of the real excitement we got out of these conferences was actually the opportunity to meet one another, to interact with one another, other people in the field, to learn from them, and to collaborate, to build our relationships. Um, and so we decided to try and create an event that was specifically about that. It was about one-to-one interaction between people who were there, that we would try to make it as diverse as possible so that we could have, sort of maximize the coolness and the funness of the event, but also so we can maximize what we learn during the event. And we looked around quite a bit, trying to understand if this had been done before, as most things have already been done before, but if this had been done before, what form had it been done in? And so the things that we found that were most similar to the concept that we wanted were were hackathons and unconferences. So I mean, many people have heard about hackathons. They're typically done in the computer science industry, and they're oriented around some software tool or another. But they bring people together in order to work intensively on a project for a short period of time. And one of the coolest things that were going on at the time and are still ongoing are these science hack days, where people come together, they collaborate with one another, they work on projects over a 24 to 72-hour period, and it's sort of these intense spurts of collaboration with others. And so we really like that as a model. Another model that had been built by O'Reilly and by Google and other organizations was the concept of an unconference. And so the reason why it's an unconference is because it's completely different than your standard static conference that people had in the field. And when we talk about conferences in academia, they tend to have where you propose or submit an abstract, where you're competing for the opportunity to be able to present, and then some group of people evaluates those abstracts. They establish a static schedule for the talks that will occur during the event, and then during the event, all of those things happen, right? You have all of those talks that are in some very specified order, and there's no opportunity to change dynamically what people talk about. So if some really cool new revelation came out in the field or something really neat was sort of established, or the interest of the people who are attending the conference changed over the course of the conference cannot change to accommodate those things. But in an unconference, you can. The idea with unconferences is instead of having a organizing committee predefine what the conference is and what the content is, the content is dynamically organized on sites so that it can ebb and flow based on the interest of the people that are there. And we really liked that idea and thought that that was cool as well. And so what we wanted to do, creating the Brain Hack, and the original event was called a Brain Hack and Unconference, was to combine these two ideas together and try to create a working conference, a workshop that would bring brain scientists together to try and accelerate the field of open science. To try to accelerate the field of neuroscience. And another thing that was very inherent in this that is required is very much transparency between people. And so if you're going to have an event like this, you can't have, people that are guarding their ideas or unwilling to share their ideas, because I mean, it would be ridiculous if they were. And so a lot of the ideas, a lot of creating these brain hacks and making them work requires this kind of concept and this ethos of open neuroscience, which me and my colleagues are huge supporters of. But basically, we believe that ideas, data, and tools should be openly shared, particularly if they're germane to studying the brain and exploring and understanding the brain a little bit better. One of my friends likes to say that we shouldn't be able to pat in the face of God. And what they mean by that is when it comes to us exploring and learning information by observing the world, those observances shouldn't be things that we hold private. If they're about the world kind of belongs to all of us, so we should share those things. So the brain hacks pretty much require and sustain and subsist upon concepts of open science, open sharing of ideas, tools, and data. And the brain hack can be a conduit for sharing these things, particularly the ideas and information on how to use tools. Also, we decided to favor collaboration over competition. If you look at a lot of the hackathons that are out there, particularly those that are, primarily focused towards computer software design and development, they tend to have a competitive element to it. So everybody comes together, they spend time working on a project in a team, and at the end, the outputs of that effort are evaluated, compared to other people, and then you have a winner. So some of the nice things about the idea of a competition is that it creates a theme to the overall event that allows everybody to kind of work in unison together. And this is kind of a good thing. One of the number one problems that we deal with are that people are uncertain about what they'll be able to work on while they're there, uncertain about the topics that other people would be working on. And sometimes the idea of having a competition to set that thematic focus, people consider to be a good thing and something that may improve brain hacks. But instead of that, we decided we actually want people to collaborate with one another rather than compete. So rather than dividing the people who attend a brain hack event into factions that compete against one another, who instead of openly exchanging ideas with one another, felt that they wanted to retain those ideas in order to keep a competitive advantage, or otherwise, maybe decides to use some other form of brinkmanship in order to be able to win the competition, we decided that that was inappropriate, and rather we wanted to increase collaboration instead. So there have been hackathon events in neuroscience where they've used a competitive model, and those have been successful in terms of the number of people that comes and in terms of actually solving the competition that's there. But if we look at some of those models, for example, the first hackathon, OHBM hackathon, they had a competition. The actual winners of that competition did not come to the hackathon. They didn't participate on site at the hackathon. They participated outside of the hackathon. So the competition did not bring people together and did not encourage people to work together. So that was another example of how competition can be harmful. Also, if you look at the Pittsburgh Brain Imaging Conference, which was a very successful competition that's been done several times in the past, and it focuses on using multivariate methods in order to do predictive modeling of neuroimaging data. If you look at how those things are won, they tend to be won by specifically designing algorithms and methods that are optimal based on the scoring criteria that are there, and not necessarily based on creating generalizable knowledge. And since we want to create generalizable knowledge, we don't want to create this idea where you have a specific cost function or a competition that people optimize what they're doing for. And in general, we all just have a lot better time if we collaborate with one another than if we're hell-bent on trying to beat one another. So that was one of the major focuses that we've had with the brain hack overall, and one of the major tenets of the brain hack: collaboration and not competition. The main thing about a brain hack is that it's about meeting new people, getting in touch with new ideas, learning new skills. We want to open and bring in people from all different types of scientific backgrounds. We want to expose them to brain science, expose them to the problems that we have, with the hope that they'll be able to bring in their creativity and their own knowledge and be able to sort of improve what we know about brain science and help push us forward. Similar to the unconferences that we talked about, the content of a brain hack is generated by the participants. So all of the different talks that are there, the schedules, all of these things are generated on site by the people that are contributing for the most part. There are a few things that are more structured in the event, but out of necessity. But the goal is that everything can flow and be dynamic to maximize the experience of each of the participants. And so all of these things about what the brain hack is about, all of these things are very intangible. And we've struggled quite a bit with the brain hack because of that fact, because it's very hard for us to show on paper or to show otherwise to people what are the benefits of attending brain hack. And so it's kind of one of those things, once you've been there, you know it. Once you've experienced and watched somebody from before the brain hack to after the brain hack, you can see a marked change in who they are. But when you're talking to a group who has no exposure to the brain hack before and who may be a little bit skeptical about whether or not it's a waste of their time, it's very hard to convey some of these ideas. And so hopefully with this introduction, I'll be able to do that. And we're also working on some other things. But ultimately, the goal is that by building a community of researchers who are working together with diverse backgrounds, who are open to sharing their tools and their ideas, and who are more interested in working together than the competing with one another, we believe that we can accelerate the progress of science and reproduce the reproducibility of what we know, improve the reproducibility of what we know. And that is our ultimate goal. So we recently published a paper, I say recently, I guess it was 2016, where we kind of discussed what happens during a brain hack and gave some basic understanding, to provide a basic understanding to people who want to host a brain hack or otherwise. So I recommend people look at that if they're interested. The URL is at the bottom of the link, the slide here. But there are certain types of events that we have at a brain hack, or you know, you can, even though it's very dynamic, there's certain stages of the brain hack, certain stages that you go through the course of it. And you'll remember that we kind of had the unconference and the hackathon, where we wanted to combine those ideas together. But then also we've been adding on an educational component to help enable less experienced attendees to learn more and to develop their skills quite a bit faster in sort of the brain hack model. So the brain hack always begins with a meet and greet. It's a social event. It's all about encouraging people to work with one another, learn from one another, and to actively get face time with one another in order to work on things. So the first thing we need to do is break the ice, get people to know one another, and get a basic understanding of what people's backgrounds are, so that you can identify who in the room may have who in the room you may be interested in learning more from. There are a few prearranged lectures, tutorials, and demos. You know, some things like tools, specific tutorials for tool sets and those things, they take more time and planning in order to create, so those aren't done on the spot. So we do have a few of those in there, although does seem a bit contrary to our goal of doing everything on the spot. Not everything can be done that way. A lot of the time during a brain hack is allotted to open time to work on projects. So this is the open hacking sessions, where people are sitting together at tables and working on whatever they decided to allot their time to while they're there. So some people will be actively roaming around, talking with different people, learning from different people. Other people will kind of be highly focused on a very specific goal that they'll work on. And there's a lot of time associated with that. Throughout the event, we have unconference sessions, which are hour or 2 hour slots where people can sign up to give a brief talk about something that they're interested in. So oftentimes this is something that other people in the room have identified as something they would like to learn about. And if somebody knows about it in the room, then they'll be asked to give a brief discussion of it. Other times it'll be somebody who, you know, they have a problem that they're working on and they want to present it to everybody so that they can provide input. And that's another opportunity about it. Unconference sessions are usually scheduled on the day of the session, a few hours before. And we try to be as democratic as possible in general. Everybody that signs up is allotted some period of time. For other unconferences that are hosted by Google or by O'Reilly, they have tie-breaking mechanisms and other things that are more complicated in order to handle time allocation. In general, for us, though, we try to involve everybody that we can. So throughout the event, there's these sort of these sessions. And then finally, at the end of the event, we have wrap-up sessions, which allows you to tell other people about what you accomplished, kind of puff out your chest a little bit and discuss what you've done. And also, if some people will be working on ideas and maybe it's a time to present some sort of consensus or ask for consensus on what is produced. And also, importantly, this is an opportunity to take a retrospective of the event and to allow everybody in the event to kind of provide information and provide input that can be used in the future to improve other events. So one of the problems that we always have is the fact that hackathons come from computer programming, right? And so we're always faced with people who are like, well, the brain hack sounds like a great idea, but it's not for me because I'm not a computer programmer. I don't know anything about programming computers, and I wouldn't know how to spend my time when I was there. And there's very good reason why people have this consternation. If you look at the definition of a hackathon, it is a brief event of 1 to a couple of days where computer programmers and others involved in software development meet and collaborate intensively on software projects. That is not what a brain hack is about. A brain hack, if you want to describe a brain hack, you take this definition and you replace computer programming and software with brains. So a brain hack is a brief event where brain scientists and others involved or interested in brains meet and collaborate intensively on projects related to brains, right? So in general, we like to say brain hack is where people from disparate backgrounds come together to collaborate to do brain science. And when I say disparate backgrounds, I mean the whole gamut. Many of the people that attend these things are what you would expect. They're people from the neurosciences, psychology, medical fields such as psychiatry and neurology, physics, computational science, engineering, mathematics, and really when we started this, one of the major goals is to try to marry and to create interactions between neuroscientists and computational scientists, because initially that was kind of one of the most obvious areas where we felt like we could get impact. And me and the other organizers, as we began to expand our knowledge and to learn more from the people in the field, we began to see how useful this model is to expanding it even farther beyond those boundaries and start to include people from economics and anthropology and art and history and political science, other fields that can contribute significantly into helping us understand how to better understand the brain, and also fields that can help us understand, consensuses on improving the way that we study brains and in improving the science and the reproducibility and everything else. So eventually maybe we'll be able to include everyone under this theme of who comes to a hackathon. So a hackathon is not exclusively about programming computers. I often tell people that if you come to a brain hack, it is very likely that the thing that you work on will involve a computer. But it's not necessarily about developing computer programs. It could be about, writing a paper together, doing an analysis together, coming up with a new specification for doing quality assessment of data, or coming up with rules for reporting your statistics approaches in the literature, or it could be pairing with a brain structure, a neuroanatomist, in order to come up with new or discuss new hypotheses about the etiology of autism. There's a variety of different ways that people can contribute to these things. So how the hackathon aspect of Brain Hack works is that we ask people to propose Brain Hack projects. So rather than having very rigid themes that everybody sticks to, we ask everybody in attendance to propose something that they would like to work on. And at the beginning, after the icebreaker, the participants will present the thing that they're interested in working on, telling everybody else about it. And then people have the opportunity to join one or more projects and work on those projects. And then throughout the event, they work on those things. So sometimes people will propose projects that a lot of people are interested in and people come together. Other times people will propose a project and not many people are interested in it. And that person who did the proposal will end up working on a different project than what they proposed. Oftentimes people will come, instead of specifically working on a group project, they'll work on their own project, but interact with others for different phases of that project so that they can learn how to do new things. For example, learn how to do a new tractography skill that they haven't worked on, and then take that and combine it with knowledge from somebody else who knows more about neuroanatomy in order to be able to better understand and interpret the results of that. So there are some people who are more in a student role who are just kind of moving from one-to-one to interact. Oftentimes, there's very senior people who are there, and they're kind of the opposite of that, where they stop in at various projects and provide brief words of wisdom or brief ideas in order to help people going. And that's sort of how the hackathon part of it works. For the project proposals, if you want to propose your project before the event, then you can submit the project to brainhack.org, and we'll put a small blurb of the project on the webpage. And that way people can familiarize themselves with the type of work that will be done during that event. On the right here, we have a very nice picture from the Brainhack we had in Lausanne at the OHBM to kind of give you a sense of everybody kind of working together. We try to break up the spaces so that the tables are clustered so that 4 to 8 or 6 people can work together on projects, and then have them dispersed around the room so people can kind of work collaboratively together. And of course, the most important thing is we got to have a lot of power and a lot of electricity. And also a lot of caffeinated beverages, which I believe you'll see all of those things in that picture. So as I mentioned, the first hackathon, the first Brain Hack was in 2012 in Leipzig. And on the left here, you see 2 of the founders, Daniel Margulies and Pierre Balek, in an intensive pair programming session discussing, I can't remember, but on the right here, you see a picture of one of the main workrooms and all of the different people working together. And I'm really proud of this picture. If you look through the room, many of the attendees of this room, there are people who are very actively involved in Brainhack to this day, host their own events, have continued to come, and they've really sort of helped carry on the torch of what a Brainhack is. If you look through here, you see a lot of the leadership of the open science community, which is something that I'm particularly proud of. So as I mentioned before, the Unconference session has been done in various different modes. When we were in Leipzig, we had a beautiful auditorium that we could use in order for people to give our presentations. But sometimes we did things that were much more comfortable and relaxed, where we presented, just kind of while people were sitting in pillows on the ground. But this is the most typical academic sort of experience that occurs at the Brain Hack, where people are kind of in that mode where they're just kind of listening and taking in. But we also engage in very, very active conversations, very, debates, other things where people really get involved, expressing their ideas, and really try to elucidate the finer points of some of the things that they're thinking about. One of the things that people were very interested in, and one of the feedback, early on feedback we had gotten, was about people not feeling like they necessarily had the right skills or the right ideas to work on at the event. And so they were a little bit worried about what they would accomplish there. And so what we decided to do is start to add in educational components to Brainhack so that we could kind of expedite and accelerate the course of new people that came in, and at the same time release some of their anxieties about not knowing what they're doing or feeling like they're wasting their time being there. And so with the education, what we try to do are very hands-on courses to kind of give people exposures to new ideas and how to use new tools and get them over that initial kind of bump in terms of learning how to do things so that they can go from there and learn more on their own. We also there's a lot of one-on-one counseling, peer tutorials that'll occur at these events where people can work together and learn directly, and in many cases directly from the people that have developed the tools on how to optimize them to work together. So the Brain Hack has blown up since that original event back in 2012. Now you can see that every year we seem to have a lot more. In 2017, I'm really proud to say that we've already had, we've already had 5 regional events, or we've already had 5 standalone events. We had Brainhack Global, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. And then we have one planned event, which is Washington, D.C. And one of the best parts about this for me is that of these, most of these I wasn't actually involved in the planning of. So it's really exciting to see that there's a lot of people who are kind of taking the initiative, and this is a growing community, and people are contributing. And for those of you who are interested in creating this event, if you want to call it a brain hack, if you want to rely on my expertise and others to help you in order to figure out how to do this, we don't really ask anything in return. We just want you to have a brain hack, and the major thing is we want it to be about collaboration and not competition. But beyond that, we're here to help you, and you can make things customized as much as you wanted to, or other things. But don't be worried about us being upset with you if you decide to have an event, or feeling like you're infringing on our intellectual property or anything like that. That's not what the brain hack is about. The brain hack is about you stepping in, you doing what you want to do, you kind of making it your own. You will see that certain areas pop up a lot. So Paris, France has particularly showed up quite a bit on this list. Also Montreal. And those are some of our strong colleagues. So Roberto Toro in Paris loves the brain hack model, and has hosted periodic brain hacks for years now, and really has been able to get a lot of stuff done and a lot of stuff accomplished there. And he's a brilliant and creative person. So it's a huge testament to him. Also, and you'll see that Montreal shows up a bunch. Pierre Balek has also been hosting a lot of events regionally in Montreal in order to be able to do this. So when we began with the brain hack model, mostly we had these standalone events that were international events where people would come together from all over the world to one site and work together for a 3-day period. And while that was very exciting and very interesting when it happened, we also wanted more. When we originally envisioned the brain hack, we wanted this to become more of sort of an everyday way that people would work, right? So rather than having these things where we do these sporadic collaborations internationally, we wanted to try and encourage people to have small regional events, or not necessarily small, but have regional events where they would participate more in their community, and to build bridges into other institutions within their local communities, and to have events more regularly and more locally. When we started encouraging people to do this, we got a lot of pushback because people felt like they didn't have enough local stuff, right? No local resources in order to be able to have a successful event. So we countered that, and we had the idea of having what I call a distributed brain hack in order to be able to address that. So the idea is by having many regional events occur at the same time, those events could link up with one another and share information, share videos, share other things with one another, work on projects that span different sites, in order to be able to draw people to each one. So at each site, it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of nowhere and you feel like you don't have any, there's a very small community, you can quickly tap into larger communities. For example, like Boston has a ton of institutions and a ton of interest, and be able to get it going. And so we've had 3 of these events. We started off with Brainhack EDT, which was limited to the Eastern Daylight time zone of the US, or 1 or 2 time zones within that. And the whole idea with that was, as well, if we want to synchronize, then people have to be within a time zone of one another in order to be able to do that. So that was kind of our first trial. That was very successful. And the number one complaint we had was from people that are like, well, why can't I be involved? Why can't California be involved in your brain hack? So the next year we expanded it to Brain Hack Americas, and we had it from the East Coast to the West Coast of the US, and the East Coast and West Coast of South America. And we had a few more events there. This year, we decided to kind of rip off the Band-Aid and go Brain Hack Global. And so we had brain hacks occurring over the same weekend in 34 locations of 15 countries, 4 continents, and over 1,000 attendees. And it was a very successful event, a very large event. But as you can see, a lot of sort of what you would expect. A lot of the events were focused in the U.S. or in Europe, but we had some very exciting things in Chile and Brazil, and in Asia as well. And so our final goal is to have a brain hack where the sun would never set on the brain hack, and I think we may have accomplished that. The next goal is to have sort of a flight overgoing this that can participate in all of those brain hacks, and Daniel Margulies and the other co-organizers are trying to work on this idea of how can we actually visit each brain hack as they're going along. We haven't come up with a great idea with that yet, but stay tuned for other brain hack events in there. And to give you kind of a flair, there's a lot of different, to give you an idea of how we synchronize these events, there's a lot of different collaborative tools that are out there. We're very active on GitHub. The Brainhack Slack team has become extremely active. We use Twitter, we use video broadcast in order to be able to communicate through these things. If you go and you look at the YouTube channels for Brainhack, you'll see that there's probably on the order of 50 hours of video lectures, tutorials, talks on there, a ton of information that we've archived from these different events. So as I mentioned before, one of the major issues we've had with Brainhack is it's all about intangibles. And if you want to try to get your boss to agree to let you go to a Brainhack event, or if you want to try to encourage somebody who is skeptical about it, about the reasons why it comes, it's very hard to convince them based on intangibles, right? By definition. And in academia, the most tangible of all tangibles is publications. So we started an experiment in 2015 where we would create a Brainhack proceedings. So these are a collection of short papers that came from the projects that people worked on and Brainhacks. And similar to the unconference model, this is almost an unproceeding model where instead of the abstracts being submitted before the conference and presented at the conference and published afterwards, we actually have people come, do the work at the conference, and then write the report about what they did after the event happened. And then those are, those short papers are peer-reviewed by other members of the Brainhack community and then published. The first year, we partnered with GigaScience to have them published in our proceedings. These are online. Please check them out. I believe there's about 26 there. And in 2016, we partnered with Rio in order to be able to do that, in order to publish them for that year. And that was sort of a very successful thing. And in 2017, we're planning on doing it again. So what we've learned actually quite a bit going through this process. And I'm sure all of you have been openly at least heard about the debate between different publishing models and the open publishing models and the role of journals and the future of things. And we've sort of directly been affected by that. So GigaScience was very generous in the beginning in order to be able to help us publish. But as we've tried to continue it, they've kind of decided that, because so many publications are likely to come out of the Brainhack, and those they felt like may not be as important publications as other things they could get, that it would adversely affect their index factor in order to have the Brainhack proceedings published through them. So that was one issue. With Rio, we had a really good experience, but we used their format and their online tool for doing it, and their online tool didn't necessarily fit exactly with what we would like to be and how we would like to do things. So now with the 2017 proceedings, we're kind of stepping back and thinking about, well, this is an opportunity to start fresh and to look at new ways of doing publications. Some of the members of the Brainhack community, particularly Satya Ghosh and Chris Gorgolevsky, they thought, well, this is a great opportunity for us to kind of roll our own journal and do our own things. And I'm kind of coming around to that. I'm sensitive to the fact that whatever we come up with has to work well. It has to get things out there, but also it can't be too far afield of what the community recognizes as acceptable academic publishing, because then it won't be appreciated and it won't serve the function that it's there. So we're still working on this, and we're very much open to ideas, but probably how we will do things for the 2017 Brainhack proceedings, we'll put out a call and people could submit their preprints to BioArchive. We'll create a channel on BioArchive to organize everything. We'll do technical reviews by the editors, and then we'll try to get post-publication review done using Academic Karma or some other open access peer review platform. But if anybody has suggestions, please contact me and let's discuss them more. So Brainhack we have web pages associated with Brainhack. we host them all on GitHub. So there's brainhack.org is the organization. So it's brainhackorg.github.io is the URL, or just brainhack.org. The GitHub organization is called Brainhack.org. And this is where all of our pages are. So if you want to create your own event, contact us. We'll create a project for you on there, and then you can push your web page to there, and then it'll show up at brainhack.org / the name of your event. Also, you can go through and look at the events, and if you like any of the web pages that have been created in the past, then you can fork those web pages and make them your own, and do whatever you like with them. They're all kind of up there. So this is the solution we have. One of the disadvantages of doing everything, doing the web hosting via GitHub is that the pages are only static. We can do JavaScript, but beyond that, we can't do PHP or some of the other fancy stuff that you might want to be able to do in order to do forms and things of that nature. So we are limited a bit in that regard, but it's how we do things, and we try to share information and link the projects from there. So as Brainhack has grown, and as we have sort of extensively preached this idea of diversity, we've become more and more aware that the number one problem with diversity is acceptance, right? And so in Brainhack, we have never had a problem with anybody's conduct. We've never had a problem with anybody's harassing one or another people. But what we began to see is that more and more organizations began to publish code of conducts to specifically dissuade and list the penalties for harassment at their events. And as we go and we try to get more funding, one of the things we find that people are more the funding agencies require is a very visible and very obvious way and manner in which you try to address things like diversity and how you handle anti-diversity in a sense. And so through consultation with my other colleagues who are very active in matters of diversity and include in encouraging equal representation, we have adopted a code of conduct for the Brainhack. And pretty much what it says is if you harass anybody at any time, you'll be asked to stop. If you don't stop, you'll be asked to leave, and you may be asked to never return, and you probably won't be missed. We do not tolerate harassment at Brainhack. We encourage people to be as diverse and as open as they possibly can. We want as many different types of people to come, and we don't want anyone's preconceived notion about what is good science or bad science, or what is the right way to live your life or the wrong way to live your life, in order to get in the way of that. And so if you have suggestions about better ways of improving the code of conduct, or ways that we can improve how we handle code of conduct issues, I'm also very open to do that. We try to be very diverse. In the past, the Brainhacks, we've had numerous travel awards that are aimed at encouraging people to be able to come regardless of their financial situation or other reasons why they may not be able to come. And we're very interested in addressing what we see barriers that lead to underrepresentation of certain groups from neuroscience. And if anybody has any ideas on how to improve that, please let me know. But in general, it has been a great experience organizing Brainhack events, attending Brainhack events, participating. I love the field. I love seeing people who start coming to Brainhack events begin to come more often, and to see them grow and to see them become active participants in it. One of the best parts about the whole thing for me, and one of the things that makes me feel like that the efforts that we put in early have actually come to fruit, is seeing all of these events pop up that are new events. And our goal is to be better neuroscientists, to understand the brain better. And my colleagues and I, we strongly believe that the best way to do that is to openly work with others in order to be able to do that, and to bring up our colleagues, to help support their colleagues, to help educate one another, and to learn as much as we can in order to be able to do that. So I hope that this has been a useful introduction. I hope it explains Brainhacks to you. The next Brainhack event that we're going to have is going to be in Washington, D.C., just before SFN. I believe that some members of the online Brain Intensive are already planning on coming to that, and I would like to encourage you all to come. Once again, I'd like to thank Sarah for inviting me, and I'd like to thank you all for listening. Have a nice day.